สวัสดีค่ะ everyone.
สวัสดีค่ะอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์สวัส
สวัส
ดี
ดี
ครับ
ค่ะอาจารย์ and
สวัสดี
everybody.
ครับอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
We were just talking about traveling and knitting while discussing. It's all daily life. Still,
I can't do both. One thing at a time. I have to stop. I've made mistakes.
and Tom, what did you think about the discussion last week when you had mentioned about the film about the Pakistani transvestite, and we had a bit of a discussion about Loba, and then Ajah's comment was endless thinking. So I was thinking about the film, thinking about the travels, thinking about the knitting, and all
Sure.
comes back to the understanding of the chitta now, the thinking now, the seeing now, the hearing now, whilst thinking about the story.
Yep. No, I think that's just we have to accept the stories will come and go, but realities also are there. So, yeah.
And that's exactly right. The bound to be thinking about one story after another, based on what has been seen and heard and so on. But understanding can pop in any time and understand about what the reality is at this moment. So it's not a matter of not thinking about the movie or not knitting or not thinking about the travels, but there can be a little more understanding that it's just seeing now, thinking now, hearing, likes and dislikes as usual.
I think our human nature, we want to be able to do something, and it's just accepting and studying is you don't feel like you're developing, even though considering and discussing does its magic, I guess. Yeah.
Or not.
Or not. Yeah.
And that's where the patience and the confidence come in to support the understanding. So the more understanding, the more confidence that nothing to be done, no one to do anything. And it's the patience that supports that understanding, not expecting results, not wishing for this or that, but understanding that it takes a long time, all by conditions. But like you say, one is so used to doing something or getting results, so it takes a lot of understanding, a lot of confidence, a lot of patience to let go of the idea of I who can do anything or change anything.
On the other hand, thinking and considering, is better than not doing that.
That even the thinking and considering is conditioned, not I that thinks
No.
or considers. So
No, exactly. But
like even now, it depends on conditions, whether it's wise or unwise thinking or reflecting. In between the moments of thinking about the dharmas, the moments of thinking about other things, the meal one had or the knitting or the this or that. So each moment is conditioned. No one can decide what the thinking will think about at any moment. Morning, Alberto. Alberto, do you have any topic you'd like to bring up or ask Ajahn about? We haven't heard from you for quite a while.
Hi, sir. I was reading Robert post on the SG about the people who are born with different kind of ayurveda, like in this extreme case of the people who have accumulated so much akusala, and also quite a lot of kusala, like the one who were born in Deva, in Pitta. Well, actually, not really sure the place of birth, and they also, but in that lifetime, their akusala karma also what's the word? It it was ripe for their for their being in the hell as guardian, hell guardians, which were inflicting pain to the people being born there. But actually, I think they were born in the Vimana
The Deva realm.
yeah, maybe it wasn't the Deva, but anyway, yeah, it's really amazing how the karma works, and how the karma the result of karma make all these different creatures, and maybe Ajahn can talk about the different way that karma manifests in different life. Maybe Ajahn can explain a bit more about how it's possible for the same Patisandi being so different people, like, and during the night being in hell and causing suffering to people and all that. Well, anyway, this is what I understood from the passage that Robert posted in DSC, which I think was very interesting. Thank you.
No matter what we talk about this subject or other issue, can it condition moment of understand the truth of what is there now? So what is the use of thinking about such and such in order to find out? What about right now? If it can condition the understanding of this moment, I think that it's worthwhile, because the life continues on from moment to moment with ignorance and no understanding of the truth of what is there now, and on and on and on. That's why the best thing, the most precious reality, is understanding what is there now. Because what we are talking about is not the truth of this moment. It's just a moment of thinking by many conditions. But what about the word which can condition the beginning to develop the understanding of the truth? No matter what we are talking about, it can be realized to understand it as it is. Otherwise, Otherwise, it's just being born and experience different objects and think about many, many things and then die. What about all we are talking about? Can it be again next time? Or it's gone, never to return, never to arise again? What we are talking about last year and today or whatever, what is the truth? Is there any understanding of it? And should it be just lived with experiences, the objects of the six domains, and that at the moment without experiencing any object of the six domains at all, and then die? What is the use of this whole life? Thinking with pleasant feeling and pleasant feeling, remembering on and on, and then gone, never to return at home. No thought about it. Next slide, next story, again and again. But there can be the understanding of the truth of what is there, to begin to understand what one takes for life or for me. What is it? Without seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Can it be what we just talked about? Different stories. But what is it? We just learn by words only. The reality which now experiences an object. Without it, how can there be any life, any story, any thought about such and such matter? That's why even it's there now so close it should be known, because it's so close. It's not known. So how can there be the answer for any question for people near or far? See, it's only thinking, and it's there just at moment of thinking and no more. And the other object appears and follow the story of it on and on and on in life. What is left? Just a moment, no understanding of that again and again and again. But can there be the time to begin to consider the truth, to understand what life is, to know what is dangerous and what is benefit, to live with understanding the moment which is conditioned to be there. No expectation before whatever arises at all. Is this life? No matter the story we're thinking about, must be conditioned. And is it true now? It's gone because no thought about it at this moment of talking about other matter or other things. For example, right now, there is seeing. She is there in life from moment to moment. Can there be the understanding of moment of seeing? Because it's me or mine, as we have taken it from birth on and on. And at moment of hearing right now, what is the truth of it? To understand the truth that what was wrong and what keeps on from moment to moment, die and born, or again and again and again, non-stop, as long as there are conditions. Without condition, can there be different kinds of birth? Animal, human being, for example. That's why if there is moment which can be understood as it is, anytime, any moment, like now, what is that? We think seeing, but what is it? It is real, it seems, but what is it? Not I or anyone at all, but it's a conditioned reality, like anything now, the sky, the moon, mountain, are conditioned to arise. So that is a reality which is conditioned to arise to be different because it can experience any object. Otherwise, can there be life at birth? It's there. Experiences the reality which is there, conditioned to arise to experience. and it's gone instantly, unknowingly at all, even right now. It's not only seeing, there's hearing. If there's no attention to the reality which experiences at all, it is I from birth and on and then gone, never to return. Where's the I? From birth to moment of death, no one at all, but it's not known. This life is different from previous life by conditions. And next life is not like this life, never to arise again, what arises and falls there. Absolutely gone, sunyata, anatta. Learn to understand the truth of what is there, so there can be no clinging to that object so much that it can condition crime or any abusive dhamma, which condition the result of experiences, whatever appears to eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and the result of the cause that has been done previously, and then leave this world. Who knows when? It can be this evening or just right now. And life begin again with ignorance and experiencing such and such different story from this life. That's all. So it's better to understand condition for what is there. What is conditioned to be unwholesome and wholesome, understanding and ignorance and so on can be learned little by little. This is what we are here, and to be reminded about what is there, which is not known at all, even is there any moment, any time, is the chief of experiencing, no matter what is there. Being king, life king, this life king, everything. Without it, there cannot be anything known at all. No matter when it's sleeping, waking, or whatever, it's there, arising and falling away, performing the function of being the chief of experiencing what is there, only that. And when it is different from that, it lies a reality conditioned to be attached to what is seen. It is like a reality which is conditioned to dislike the object which is heard and so on. That's all in life. And this can condition moment of understanding, no matter what is there. Just even what we just talked about, the story of such and such, what are there? Only different realities. And they are gone, but memory, not forget. Condition moment of thinking about it again. So this is one that can be studied to be known of different realities at a time, to have right understanding of the truth. No one and nothing at all. Whatever is there is conditioned to be experienced or to experience. That's right. No matter what story, even right now we're talking about what is there. The innermost, the most, it's the reality which is so close, never get away. It's there all the time, experiences the object. But at moment of seeing it, another reality attend to the object which is seen, unknown, but no eye at all. They are different kinds of realities right now and anytime. Beginning to understand what is there and condition moment of being compassion, having compassion to whatever is there, no matter the crime, the criminal, or the good one, or the happenings, whatever is there, just in a moment, and then gone. And what is better? To have hatred or attachment, or to understand that it's just there only shortly and then gone. No matter how pleasant it is, how very, very pain it is, it's gone. Nothing can stay longer. It has its own lifetime, lifespan, how long it is, different ones, the Nama and the Rupa and so on. And then gone from this world, not being this person anymore. So what is there is just the reality, which is conditioned to experience differently by different conditions. That's all. Can it be known in order to have compassion, being understanding person, no matter what happens, it doesn't harm the chitta, the reality, its experiences arising together with different factors, chitta and citta. It's the one right now, arising, falling away, never be the same moment at all. Only very shortly arises to see and then gone. Different moments, different conditions, and where am I or the other? Only different realities in the world, the whole universe.
Like you said, John, they're just different realities arising unexpectedly by conditions. And I think I have the detail that Alberta was referring to. I think he's brought this up because it's a very unusual example of conditions, because it's referring to what are called the mansion-dwelling ghosts, Vimanika Peta. And because of very good karma, they spend half of the day as devas in their celestial mansions, and half of the day as Petas in Peta realms. And the one he was referring to, the Vimanika Peta, spends half the day in hell as the servant of Lord Yama, carrying out tortures, and half the day in heavenly realms. So it's quite unusual, because usually we think about the birth as a result of karma. And as we know, that all the Bhavanga Chitas are the same through life. So it's the first time I've heard this example of beings who spend half of the day in hell realm and half of the day in Peta realms. Very unusual. But we know it's like the examples of those beings who change sex during life. So anything can happen by conditions, but it's just unusual. But it is, like you say, just thinking about different stories, different conditions, different results, which really we cannot imagine or understand. So understanding the thinking now, the seeing now is more precious. But it's quite an unusual example.
And what about the other?
Interesting.
Sorry, what about the
unusual life of Peta, the other Peta, not this one?
Yes, they're all unusual. Whatever happens is unusual. But usually the life of other Petas, like when we read in the texts about the Peta realms, usually they stay in the Peta realm all day for the whole life. But still different Chitas, even Kusala Chitas, Akusala Chitas. So you could say different realms at different moments, depending on the Chitta. Because the realm, like hell realm or Peta realm, is just a concept, an idea in truth, just like in the Rupa Jhana and Arupa Jhana realms, it doesn't mean that there are Rupa Jhanas and Arupa Jhanas at every moment. It's just for a moment. Whatever arises is just for a moment.
So the most precious moment is understanding the truth of what is the absolute truth of
Yes.
Deva and different unusual personality and unusual happenings that must be conditioned for whatever arises.
But even in the human realm, there is results of good and bad karma. So it's just another way, another combination of good and bad results, isn't it?
And
Sorry,
what-
Alberti, you were about to say something?
I know I was listening to Ajahn. Maybe she can say something. Ajahn, were you saying something?
About what?
You say what you were going to say first, Alberto, and then Ajahn can
Yeah,
add more.
because, yeah, I was thinking about the sutta. It's he was born in the heaven because of listening to the good friend. But he was a hunter, so he was listening to the good friend, but not completely. So he also went on hunting as well. So it's really all different circumstances can really different people, different. Each of us is different and has different accumulation. A bit like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and all in the same person with different like actually different people. It's also interesting when Ajahn talks about the truth being close, so close, and it's here very close. And I was thinking it's like the fire on lead. It's so close, but it's not known. Not known that it's so close.
I think
That's
what
that's all, Ajahn.
Alberto, I was thinking of your part of the world. You know, you're talking about those. It is an unusual example, as Sarah pointed out. There are many different types of preta, and those Niryapalas. I couldn't help thinking what Jonathan said, and I had been thinking of that. Within the case of like the Godfather, you know, he's very kind to his family, and then you know, he goes out and does some pretty horrible things to other people who is not his family, or sometimes who are his family. But so with all these different mixed accumulations that, you know, you can be born in so-called very fortunate circumstances, but still have those accumulations to do pretty horrible things, you know, like the Niryapalas. And of course, the Niryapalas, I won't go on too much because that is quite an interesting rebirth, but that's also karma too. And when they're doing they're torturing, if we can call it that, you know, there will be conditions for that also to be reversed down the track, no doubt. So it's a kind of it's a vicious cycle of that they get into by the nature of their deeds. But as Jonathan said, you know, that humans are like that too. You know, we can do some pretty horrible things, and then also be very gentle and kind. There's no contradiction there. It's just the way things are.
And actually, I was pointing more to result, Sundara. As a human being, we have result of good and bad karma, which is essentially what is happening in the situation that Alberto was asking about. But it comes in a different form and perhaps more extreme of good and bad result.
Okay, yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Jonathan. But still, even on the human realm, those by way of result and by way of deed, they're very mixed at times. We know by way of result, you can be born in very fortunate, reasonably fortunate circumstances, and also do things, because in the case of that particular sutta, or that I think it's from the Vimana Wattu. Again, it's about cause and effect as much as about effect.
Right. Okay.
Can there be moment of understanding what is there as it is while it's talking about such and such? The truth, the absolute truth, what is there at moment of thinking, talking about such and such? Can it be known? Or impossible?
Only when hearing the words. Yeah, only when hearing the words from a good friend, which talks about the right subject and with understanding.
The best friend is Buddha. His teachings, each word about understanding what is there, no matter at moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, thinking, talking, and on and on. Anytime. Can it be learned, gradually developed to understand whatever is there, no matter what talking, thinking, eating, doing, anything. And to be truthful is so real at that moment, but no understanding of the truth of it. Can there be the understanding of that very moment, no matter it is saying or thinking or talking? Otherwise, it's useless to learn about what Buddha said about this and that. It's only the word. But the point is not understanding the word, but the word represents the truth of what is there as different realities by conditions. And even right now, his word is so true. Moment of seeing is not moment of thinking, it's not moment of talking. That can be known. Consider each word of the Buddha just conditioned moment to have understanding of the truth of what is there in life. No selection. Beyond selection, it's there already. We cannot stop thinking about that because there are conditions to think about that only, not the other. No matter what kind of thinking is there, whether it is with attachment or aversion or whatever reality together arising at that moment, that can be known when they are more understanding from hearing and considering until it's so firm about the truth to continue on hearing again, consider again, understanding what is there when it's there again, little by little. Otherwise, what's the use of the sutta and Vinaya and Dhamma? Only in words. But it's not just the word, but it's a reality different from other by condition. Once it has arisen and fall away, never arise again at all. But how come to have such different thinking? Because of different seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, and learning about it. If we learn it wrong or misunderstanding the meaning of the truth, one is go wrong. Like what Buddha said is to do or to understand the truth, which can be understood because it's there now, right now. That's why when his word is understood wrongly, they follow the wrong way, practicing, meditating. What about the understanding? Did Buddha tell anyone to practice without any understanding? And what is meant by practice? Because he said, all dhammas are anatta. And who is that which sitting, doing something, walking, no understanding, talking without any understanding anything which is there at all? That's why the most precious reality is understanding the truth, which is there, which hasn't been understood before. For example, the reality which now experiences the object. Without it, there cannot be any world, any universe, or anything at all. All come from that which arises and experience what is there, no matter what. That's why we learn to understand the reality, which is the chief, we can say, of the world or whatever appearing, because without it, that cannot appear at all, no matter what. Even what we take for finger, flower, curtain, bed, and whatever is there. It experiences everything which appears. If just one moment is lost, it cannot be as we take it. But when it's there from moment to moment, continuously, following one another so rapidly, what is left is the sign of that which is experienced, with shape and form to be known as something in life. Without it, can there be anything at all? So learn to understand the truth, which is so close, this moment. Otherwise, what is the use of talking about the story of what the Buddha said in Sutta? The different Vedas, Devas, and people and so on. Just to understand the absolute truth of all Dhammas. Dhamma is whatever is real. All Dhammas are anatta, not in anyone's control, because in truth there's no one at all. The absolute truth is citta, the chief of experiencing what is there now, anytime. Never absent, it's there, arising and falling all the time, experiences different objects. Sometimes the object is not known, and sometimes when it's through the sense door and mind door, it's known. That's all in life. Even right now, what is there known or experienced is through eyes or ears or nose or tongue and body or mind. The story which we talk about. But what is that which talk about that? Not I at all. What is that? A conditioned moment by memory or whatever is there. So many, many different realities. That's why we learn to understand the truth closer to the way it is, to its truth, like seeing, what is it? How come the object to be seen if there's no reality which arises and experiences it? That's why we learn to understand life in order to understand what is wholesome, what is unwholesome, how come to be such and such, kusala dhamma, akusala dhamma, abhayagata dhamma, all other that can be known. Otherwise, ignorance condition stronger and stronger, akusala, which condition different deeds through speech, body, and mind. By conditions as the cause, and it conditions the result, and the result is the first moment of life, birth, and then not enough. Seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and then the accumulation of the different experiences from eons and eons ago, and even past life, and right now this life, conditioned moment of different reality to be thinking about such and such. Why some people like music, but some like sports, and some like painting and so on, by different accumulation, uncontrollable. Why one learn to understand the truth, why one doesn't mind at all what the truth is, just live and enjoy life. See, different ones by different conditions, beta or deva or human being or animal, or different dhammas. Just learn to understand and having more wholesome qualities because of understanding the truth, what is wholesome, what is unwholesome. And the best of all is understanding what is there to condition any kind of wholesomeness, and on to the degree that it can experience directly just one characteristic of a reality right now, unknowingly, unexpected, by conditions, and how much understanding of what we are hearing about it can condition different level of understanding the object which appears. Different, not the same like now, because it is a little bit clearer, but it's not clear enough from the very beginning, even it's there. There can be the understanding of how now it's different from moment when there can be the understanding of what appears now as it is. No one can make it at all. Actually, the truth is conditions. So how can there be such moment of understanding what we are talking about when it's there? For example, hardness right now. We just keep on talking about it. We can change to seeing or hearing, but hardness is hard. So it's there. When there is, we say touching, but the hardness touch the hardness, no understanding, no experiencing at all. But the moment when hardness appears, because there is the reality, which is the chief of experiencing it. No, and it's not just hardness. The visible object, the sun and so on, appear by that which experiences it from birth, non-stop, always arising and falling away. But its function is experiencing an object, arise to experience and arise and experience and then gone, only experiencing. So the other reality, like attachment, is not that which is the chief of experiencing the object. That's why we learn to understand that understanding is different from ignorance. And ignorance arising with attachment, with the idea of self, and with any other unwholesome realities. That's why what we see in our life is some people is good and some is bad, and so different happenings that we're talking about, the unusual happenings and so on, all by conditions and gone. But there is a reality which remembers the object which is experienced all the time. But its function is just to remember, to mark and remember. But at moment of thinking, there must be the other reality which perform that function to think of that which is remembered. See, this is life. It's so true, but it's not known. That's why the idea of self is there. Just take whatever what good for oneself, and so on and on. And then die, condition, the unwholesome conditions are accumulated from day to day, on and on. So life is different, like different kind of beta, see, and different kind of deva, by conditions. That's all that can be known, that can be studied, that what we are talking about is there now, no matter what we are talking about. So at moment of talking, thinking, what is there? In truth, without memory, can there be a moment of thinking about such and such unusual thing, unusual happening, and gone, performing the function? That's all. Is it useless to know? Or is so true that it better be known? To understand more and more and more and more until what is now talked about appears as it is. No doubt at all about the truth of what we have heard.
I think it's very useful to know, and I think the thing is, like the original questioner in this discussion, a Vietnamese friend, he mentioned he has no doubt about namas and rupas in hell realm, which like now are conditioned to rise and fall away instantly. But then he says, was King Yama real, and were the wardens of hell real? So we hear about namas and rupas, we hear about seeing an invisible object, but then we read about the Buddha and Sariputta and Ananda and King Yama and the wardens of hell. And we forget that there are just different dharmas arising and falling away, moments of kusala, moments of akusala that we refer to as this or that being. But in truth, there is no Buddha, no Ananda, no King Yama at all, just these different dharmas. But without understanding now, what appears now, it can't be known. And that's why there's just endless thinking about different stories without understanding of the truth at this moment. So as you say, whatever we read about, whatever detail in whatever sutta or whatever part of the Tipitaka is actually about now. And the truth is the thinking now after what has been seen and heard and so on.
I think Alberto's original question, though, was
You've gone, Jonathan. You're not there. I can't hear you.
oh, thanks, Sondra. Not sure why. Is that any better? Can you hear me now?
That's good.
Hello. You can.
Yeah, that's good now. Thank you.
Right, thank you. I think Alberto appreciates all of that, but in his original question, he asked how the same Patisaticitta could accomplish both life in heavenly realm and life in a peta realm. Presumably, the latter would be result of akusala vipaka. So there's what we might say is a technical point there for consideration, because we understand that there is birth in a realm either as a result of kusala. The Patisaticitta is conditioned either by kusala gamma or akusala gamma.
I think that that issue might be resolved this way. There are many different types, and I was taking that point also and considering that as an option, which seemed rather strange. But I believe, and I can follow up on this matter, that there are many different types of Peita rebirth, or not many different types. I think there are at least 4. And this particular one, of course, they're obscure and not usually looked at. Maybe that's just the nature of this particular, it's actually birth as a Peita, but in that Peita realm, like you alluded to earlier, Jonathan, there, or with regards results, there are, it does seem like birth in hell, but it may seem it's the same birth, but with the same patisandhi, but there are the possibilities, it seems, in that realm of being in the position of, while you're born as a Peita, of visiting, inverted commas, because I think Sarah made a good point, when she talked about that person Long asking that question, is he real? Well, of course, I think he was referring to the conventional sense. Yes, certainly he is real in that conventional sense. There is a Yama. I certainly believe that. And there are these Niryapalas, these guardians of hell, as they're called, who do the torturing. But in actual fact, just very briefly, they do not experience the heat in the way that the people who are born in hell, which seems rather unusual, but we can see that they're just different conditions. Even when you're born in that hell realm, or you're in that hell realm, you will experience different results by way of body sense, whether you're a Niryapala or if you're, the actual being who's born in hell. So I'm thinking in this particular case that there's only the one birth, but there are just conditions to be in, like in the human realm, in a sense, different places, or different vicinities, if you like, and it may lend to that idea that we often think that hell is not so far away as we think it is, in the literal sense of the word. But I hear a point, Jonathan, I think was a good one that that Alberto referred to, because it certainly can lead to the idea, well, what's going on here? Is there different? There's only one patisandhi, but there seems to be, inverted commas, 2 births. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's the case of being born as a Peita, but in that realm being able to experience both extremes, so to speak. But I will follow up on that, because it's an interesting case in point, and see what I can find out.
So Alberto, does that answer that part of your question, that one rebirth, but experiencing kusala, both results of both kusala and the kusala vipaka within that one lifetime, and that kusala vipaka being experienced in another realm from the akusala vipaka?
I think I was born in, I said, Deva, or Pita, or maybe Pita. I'm not sure about the details. Go ahead.
Yes, I think that's what it says, that it was birth in the Deva realm, but spent part of the time in the hell realms performing those functions. Who knows, by conditions. Like wasn't it even Mahamoggallana went to visit those in the hell realms or the Peita realms, all by conditions?
That's right, he did. So yeah, I think it's certainly possible to have the one birth, human or otherwise, and but in the case of like in the case of the Niryapalas, the guardians of hell, they do not receive, it's obviously by accumulations if they're doing that kind of thing, that they're torturing their ayuhana, that's their accumulated tendencies to behave in such a manner. But so it seems that that's certainly possible. I can't see why that's not possible. But just the one birth, not two. Obviously, Padisandhis, that would be impossible, it would seem to me.
And as Ajahn said,
sorry, Alberto, what were you saying then?
Yeah, I was thinking another subject that Ajahn was talking. Oh, I was reading in Intl.Dhamma about Gati Sampati and Gati Vipati and all different Sampati and Vipati, depending on the karma which results in that birth. It's very complex issue. I don't understand the details. I think it helps to see how karma works so complicated, and there is no one that can choose the way, even the way we behave, like torturing people, even that, and
I think
also being born in heaven.
I think that you just brought up there with Sampati and Vipatti, of which there are four. It's a part apparently that hasn't been translated into English. That's what it said in Ajahn's book from memory. But I think that's slightly different. That just relates to the nature of conditions, whether, like, for example, in the case of being born a very attractive or a very handsome person, that talks about the conditions for more kusala vipaka, which is obviously a case of gati sampatti. So that's just referring to, in that particular birth, which is quite interesting itself. But again, I think it's just referring to the conditionality that can affect the kind of results that you receive, that's received in a particular birth. But that's always an interesting area to revisit and helpful. But I think what Ajahn was talking about before, that, we tend to get into the stories of everything. And while it's because of our accumulations, it's all very, inverted commas, interesting, we can be overlooking the nature of Dhamma as it appears. It doesn't have to be necessarily so, because it can be another type of thinking, which can be the object of understanding. But sometimes the stories can take us in all sorts of areas that maybe not so helpful. But I think I'm certainly going to follow up on that one and see what I can find out. That's part of my own accumulations.
And I think the main point Ajahn was stressing is whether can there be understanding of the truth now while thinking about this and that story or this or that situation, because that's what's most important. So we can talk about the sampati, vipati, the favorable and unfavorable conditions and so on. But what about now? What about the seeing now? What about the thinking now? Because understanding of the thinking now, the citta now, is more precious than working out all the details.
Yeah, like Ajahn yesterday.
Sorry, Alberto?
Yeah, like Ajahn yesterday was saying that when the citta is just arises and falls without any understanding of it, it's if there is no understanding of citta, there must be the idea of self being citta of unless there is some understanding, even intellectually, there must be the idea of self, even thinking or seeing or speaking.
And we think because it's a story about the Dhamma, it's wise considering or pariyatti, but not necessarily at all. What about the attachment now to working out the details or understanding the story? What about the ignorance now? So the pariyatti has to be the understanding of what is true at this very moment, no matter whether it's the story about the transvestite in the movie or the story about the devas or King Yama. It's all comes back to the understanding of what appears right now. Otherwise, as you say, it's endless cittas arising and falling away in ignorance, no understanding at all. And it's the idea of I, my thinking, my experience, and this person and that person and these beings and those beings endlessly, no matter whether it's about the film or the details in the text. Vasita or Anne, do you have anything you'd like to bring up today or Tadao?
I'll go ahead, Anne, if you've got nothing.
No, I'm sorry. I don't have anything today. You go ahead.
Okay, thanks, Anne. I think it came up in the Vietnamese discussion, and somebody, I think somebody asked, oh no, it wasn't. It was an older talk. But anyway, it was, this person was talking about having a technique reminding himself that, you know, during the day that this is impermanent, or I'm not quite sure what it was. However, but the word technique rung a bell in me, because often during the day I will remind myself, well, now is just a reality. And I don't know if I've turned it into a technique or whether it's just that thought comes to my mind. I could be doing something and it's feeling distracted or something, and then telling myself, well, it is there, the only reality is right here, right now. And it's kind of, it's comforting in a way when that thought comes to my mind. I guess, yeah, I thought at first that this was becoming a technique, which is wrong practice, but it's not something that I'm not quite sure what it is. It's just the thought that comes that now is just a reality. So kind of, it's not sort of a question, but more a comment on the fact, this word technique. So I don't know if anyone's got any comments on it, or whether it's...
It reminds me of a question you brought up last week or the week before, when you weren't sure whether this such and such was right considering, or whether it was doubt or this or that. And Ajahn's reply was, it doesn't matter at all. It's all gone anyway. So whatever happened yesterday or whatever happened when there was this reminder this morning is all gone. It's of no consequence at all, because otherwise it's just thinking about the story about me and my thinking and was it this or was it that? But what about now? What about the thinking now? What about the understanding at this very moment?
Yes.
Because it's only this moment. So never mind what it was, it's all gone.
It's gone already.
And it's just speculating about what has gone that can't be known, because it's not what appears now. So it's only when there's the thinking now, if there's focusing now on this moment, for example, then there can be understanding of the clinging that comes in or the wrong view that comes in at this moment. But if it's what's happened, it's gone. Who knows?
Thank
And
you.
always
Sarah.
back to
Good
this
reminder.
moment.
Very good reminder. Thank you.
And on and on that point too, Azita, I don't it's not the word so much, and we all have different accumulations, we all think in different ways. It's like I think we can sort of make a bit of a bogeyman of a word, like certain words that have been used and people say they're no words, and I think that's rather strange. So whether it's technique or I'll name that word practice, it can conjure up for people all sorts of ideas that are not helpful, but that's the translation that's used sometimes. Very eminent people. It doesn't make it right necessarily, because as we know, the Thai word batipat is exactly the same as the Pali word, and we know that there is wrong practice. So it's not so much the word, it will always be the understanding. So I think whether you use technique or whatever other word that the other people may use, wisdom ultimately will be the ultimate arbiter of that, rather than saying, oh, we can't use that word. I think that's always rather strange to me. That's nothing to do with understanding. It'll always be about understanding. And if we want to use the word technique, if you like, in your particular case, and I personally don't have a problem with that, or I think Sarah just used the word focusing just before, I don't know, Ajahn is always reminding us about the reality of the present moment and how that's most precious to understand. We'll all have different accumulations and approach Dhamma, you might say, in different ways because of our accumulations, and how we express that is many ways secondary to our understanding. Their understanding will always be preeminent, and so the word that's used, while it can be misleading, I agree, potentially, it doesn't have to be.
Thanks, Sundara. I have another question. Upagilesa. And the first one, it's this list of 16 moral impurities of the mind, Chittasa Upagilesa. And the first one, covetousness and unrighteous greed, called Abhijal, something, Visamalopa. Unrighteous greed struck me. What is unrighteous greed? I would have thought all greed is unrighteous because there's no opposite as in righteous greed. So what is unrighteous greed? Anybody?
I didn't hear all that Pali word, but I heard the first part of that was abhijja, which is that relates to covetousness.
Covetousness and unrighteous greed. What is unrighteous greed?
Well, we all know it's like when other philosophies talk about the word righteous anger, it's a bit of an oxymoron. There's a contradiction in terms. It doesn't really make sense. It's either righteous or it's not. So it's a lot. Again, the Pali has suffered in the translation, it would seem, and it's by the sound of it, when abhijja is mentioned, it's a kusala, and as we know, that's one of the 10 kusala.
Abhijja Visamalopa.
Visamalopa, yeah, which is Visama, greed, another name for a different type of lopa. So it'll be unskillful. I have come across those before. You don't often come across them, do we? What book you're reading that from, Zita?
It's just out of the Buddhist dictionary by
Right.
Jnana Tiloka. Little hand.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, I have seen those before, but it's just another. It's sort of. It kind of seems. It does say unrighteous, but it's the English sort of suffers in that respect. The translation doesn't lean toward it being really useful. But anyway, it is unrighteous. You can say, it is unrighteous in a sense.
The Visamalopa is the expression that you and Alberto questioned before. It's the very unusual loba, very strong loba, different from the sama loba, the ordinary daily loba.
Oh, okay.
Like
Well,
the
that makes-
loba
yeah, that
which
makes sense.
conditions stealing or lying, akusala karma, out of the ordinary, not the common loba like now.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense, because especially when we talk about abhijja, which is the perverse focusing on doing something that's really unskillful.
Hi, Sarah. What is the difference between kilesa and upakilesa?
I'm going to pass this to Ajahn Tadao, if you don't mind,
Okay.
because we don't have much time. So I think it's good if she adds some comments to Azita's two topics, the one about the question about the technique and this one about the upakalesa. So let's let Ajahn speak.
I think that we do not understand what is there in life. And so when we heard different words, we have different idea whether it's right or wrong, according to wise consideration or unwise consideration. Because it's not just the word, it's the way it is in life that Buddha pointed out to it to be known that they cannot be taken for self or things at all, because it's their condition to be different moment, different levels of all kinds of kusala or akusala. That's why it's that greed now, lopa. If you don't use the English word or Thai word, the Pali word, it's that lopa now. To understand what Buddha said about kilesa and upakilesa, it's not the word, but it's the way it is in life. Otherwise, what's the use of talking about kilesa and upakilesa? Because it's there unknown in life right now. That's why he pointed out what is there to be known as not self. So is that greed or lopa now? To understand the difference between two words. That is not just the word which is different, but the reality is different. So different words for different moments of lopa. Not just the word, what we just say, what the commentaries say about it, but the truth is that. What is that which is there that Buddha pointed out to be known? So is there lopa right now?
Yes, Ajahn, there is.
Ordinary or extraordinary?
Oh, ordinary.
So what is the meaning of upakilesa? Why is upa?
I
Stronger.
And
strong.
appears to be known too that it's there, right?
Yes, Ajahn.
So that's the meaning, the way of life, different levels of different kinds of realities. And there are more words, not just upakilesa, too. It's the reality, lopa, different meanings, different words, different objects. So what Buddha taught, what Buddha said, just pointed to the reality which is there to be known as it is, as not self. But we try to find out the explanation and so on, definition and so on. But what about right now? The word represents the truth of what is there as it is. Even right now, there is lopa, attachment to what is there with ignorance. even we use the term technique or whatever, is it ignorance and doubts about the word, no understanding of the truth all the time? So the unknown reality accumulated more and more about such and such word and story.
I think also Ajahn Upakalesa is used particularly in with regard to the development of insight and vipassana and the kinds of kalesa likely to develop for those developing insight to be known. Is this correct?
So now there is slopa, but it's not known, no awareness, no understanding of that level of lopa. But at the moment of developing understanding, the reality now can be the object of right understanding, because there's foundation of understanding the truth of each reality. So whatever is there, no matter what level, can be known. When there is intention to focus on an object unknowingly by conditions, right understanding can know right then. Otherwise, there cannot be the letting go of such level of attachment to understand, to have intention, try to understand, which is wrong, because it's not moment of understanding the truth of that. When time comes, when it's there. That's why sometimes there can be understanding of the reality which is there, and sometimes even the same level of akusala, no understanding of it by conditions. That's why right understand truly what is there as it is, to be true to the truth. Understanding without any word, because it's not moment of thinking about word, but it's moment of understanding the levels of what is there as it is.
Yes, and that's why, like I said to Azita, what's gone is gone. But now, if there's even slight focus or attempt to be aware or understand, then it can be known at this moment. So that's when the understanding has to be now, because it can slip in any time, just like understanding can slip in any time. So can wrong understanding and wrong practice. Just trying to be aware, trying to focus even just a little bit. So it can only be known when it appears right now.
Yes, I think that's really good reminders. All these realities can only really be known when they arise. They can't. We do a lot of thinking about it all, but known by Panya, it can only be now. So yeah, I appreciate what has been said. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you very much, Ajahn.
And that's why we read about even when insight, even when vipassana jnanas have been developed, there can be the attachment, because the idea of self has not been completely eradicated. So there can be that focus, or there can be the idea that there is understanding or attainment, when actually it can be the attachment that is taken for being the understanding. So it can be so very subtle.
In
daily life.
That just goes further on in the book. On number C, it says 10 imperfections of insight.
That's the point that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And these are the upakalesas.
Yes.
Which can be very subtle. Yes.
Yeah. Thank
particularly
you.
referred to in the development of insight and understanding.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
And they hinder the development of insight on and on. It has to be known. Whatever appears has to be known.
Thank you.
I have a, yeah, just sec.
Go on, Tada. Sorry, go on.
Okay. I have a question about the second noble truth. When, what is the cause of suffering? Is it just one loba cetasika or kilesa or the kilesa in general? That's my question.
Conditions are very complex. So the condition for attachment now, or the condition for seeing now, is not just one moment of loba in the past, but countless moments. And what about the ignorance that conditioned birth and the attachment that conditioned birth in this life? Without that birth, there would be no arising of any Dhamma, no suffering at all. So this is why we can see the real danger, the real problem is the arising of any reality. Even the panya now is conditioned by ignorance in this way. So whatever arises is dukkha because it falls away. And it's the object of clinging endlessly. So,
Just on that.
yes, so so clinging is the cause of the arising of all dhammas in life, clinging with ignorance. So the cause of all suffering, all dukkha.
Just on that point, Tadao, dukkha samudaya, which is the second noble truth. So another translation of samudaya is cause. So people often, sometimes the word tanha is used. And as we've just been talking about upakilesa, they're all causes in a way, or they are causes, both kilesa and upakilesa. So, but when we think about the word, the second noble truth, dukkha samudaya, samudaya means cause ultimately, and it's often conveyed as lobha, which is not incorrect, or tanha, which is not incorrect either. But all levels of clinging will be included under that. Anything that constitutes a cause for the which constitute a cause for the arising of more dukkha, and that will relate obviously to lobe, will be underpinned by many different levels of attachment, and they, as we know, have many, 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 many different faces. But samudaya in itself, one of the translations uses just cause.
My question is whether the cause is, just one cetasika. Loba cetasika is the cause, or it has much wider connotation. That is, all the defilements are cause of the suffering. That's my question.
Well, I suppose I'm not entirely sure where you're coming from, but how I would understand that is that we're looking at hetu, whether they're kusa or akusala, in many ways are causes for more problems. So we don't often think about non-attachment as being a cause, but they will be invariably bound up at any particular moment with attachment. Can be not at the particular moment, but all those six hetus, lopa, dosa, and moha, and alopa, adosa, and amoha,
will bring about rebirth. And of course they're interrelated. So does that make any sense? It always come down to hetu. That is the cause. Those kusala and akusala roots, those asya and anusya, will be conditions for rebirth.
There are just a few minutes left, so let's see if Ajahn would like to add a few comments before we finish.
If there's no understanding of the first noble truth, can there be the understanding of the second truth? Just think about the story. But what is there? What is the first truth of Ariya Satya? Dukkha, Ariya Satya, not just feeling painful, but dukkha, Ariya Satya. What is it? And what reality is there? Which is dukkha. If we don't know, how can we understand the cause of it? That's why Ariya Satya is so subtle too. It's not just the way we think, but the way it is. So subtle. How come? Who can stop this moment to arise? Impossible. And can anyone stop it from falling away? It's there already. So there must be conditions for whatever arises. Otherwise, we just talk about the word, the story, but what about now? Can anyone stop the arising of whatever will be next moment, another moment, on and on and on? And what is there? Is still there. Condition, on and on and on. The first Ariya Satya. That's why learn to understand the cause and the result. But who can understand the cause without understanding the result, which is now appearing? Seeing is the result of the cause. See? And what is the dukkha of seeing? Just see. Is it dukkha? To understand the meaning of dukkha, Ariya Satya, not dukkha, ordinary dukkha that we don't like, or pain and so on. But what is dukkha? It's not just understand the meaning, the translation, but it points to reality right now to be understood. If there's no understanding of what this moment is, yet how can there be the understanding of dukkha, the first Ariya Satya? And I think that it's time now. Swadika.